What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Scratch Agency podcast, hosted by Scratch Agents for Scratch Agents. This episode is brought to you by On Hand VAs, your go-to for client-facing, office-based virtual assistants. Their systemized onboarding process is key to seamlessly integrating VAs into your insurance agency. My name is Stephen Turnbull, founder of T5 Insurance Services in Clinton, New York. I'm joined by my co-host today, the one and only, you already know, hold your applause, Mr. Sean Fitzgerald, founder of LAF Advisors in Long Island, New York. Mr. Fitzgerald, how are we doing today, sir?
Man, I'm doing great. Working on a bunch of different things. We had our mastermind call yesterday, which was awesome. And I'm working on delegating my emails to my executive assistant, trying to get the calendar sent over, and working on our fifth hire. So we got a lot of stuff going on. Hopefully that fifth hire we'll have by like June. I'm thinking like end of May, June, hopefully. But yeah, working on a lot of good things, man. Getting warmer weather. I know you love to talk about the weather. So getting some warmer weather.
Brad Bolt always loves us talking about the weather.
Oh yeah, he loves.
I just want to make a point. I just want to make the point to say to everybody listening that he's not kidding about the email thing, and that what Mr. Sean Fitzgerald does is when he says he's going to do something, he does it. The other day, I'm like, oh, I got to talk to Sean real quick. Let me send him a quick email. I get this little email back saying, "Hi, Mr. Turnbull. This is Anna, Sean's assistant. I got to this before he did. He'll be in touch with you." I'm like, whoa. No, I had to respond back. Anna, this is Steven. My emails go right through to him. Okay. I got to get through past the gatekeeper here, but he's serious about that. Sean, we're going to switch things up. This is the first time I got Long Island against Utica here. You got two of you, one of me. We had a couple episodes with a couple of Utica people. Why don't you introduce our next guest that you have on the podcast today, since you guys are down there, and then we'll jump into everything.
Cool. Yeah. Our guest today is Victor Zayas with the Retirement Center. We actually share the same office space. So it's, I figured we'd hop on one camera, make it a little more personal. I've known Victor for a few years. And when it comes to anything like financial planning, retirement planning, life insurance, like he's just a wizard when it comes to this stuff. I mean, he could tell you more about it than I can, but he's been doing it 18 plus years. Guy knows his stuff. So happy to have you on, man.
Man, thanks for that introduction. This guy right here, Sean, is a rock star. He's the only guy I know that gets up religiously at 4:30 with his kids on the back, and he's like walking by the lake by his house. Man, you're an inspiration, man.
Victor, have you seen him actually walking? I think he just does it for the Instagram and then gets back in his car. Does he actually walk around, or I thought it was just for the IG?
No, he's legit, man. Because I time it. When I wake up, I look at the timestamp. I'm like, yeah, he was up.
Well, Victor, thanks again for joining us. I'm excited about the conversation we're going to have today. For those listening and learning just about you, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background, who you are, and kind of how you got to today, and then we'll jump into the topics we want to talk about.
No, definitely. My background's a little bit different. I used to work for the New York City Department of Correction for about 14 years. And I don't know if you ever heard of Rikers Island, but I worked with, some of the worst prisoners in New York City, and I hated it. I hated the job. My whole life, I was told, get a good job, get something with benefits, secure a pension, and work for the city. So I did that, and it wasn't my ideal dream. I always wanted more. I always wanted bigger and better. And so while I was at corrections, I would study for my Series 6, 63, my life and health, my Series 65. And I slowly built up a book of business over time. I built up my confidence. I built up my knowledge base. I did a lot of practicing with fellow coworkers. I got beat up. They used to call me the snake oil swindler, the Bernie Madoff. And, it was all in good fun, but that is really how I cut my teeth. I cut my teeth on trying to sell to my coworkers. And eventually I built up such a big book of business that it made no sense for me to stay at the city, and I had to resign. And I resigned over, I think it's like 7-8 years now. And built up several locations, had a big office in Melville, was in Syosset during COVID, and then we just opened up this new office over here in Lindenhurst called the Retirement Center. You can Google us, the retirementcenterny.com, and we're just super fired up. We're serving the community. We got a Social Security workshop coming up April 10th and 11th at the Knights of Columbus, and we're really about giving transparency and clarity to the financial services industry. There's a lot of big companies out there, a lot of big agencies out there. They're all great companies and agencies, but we like to be very transparent with cost, fees, and giving clients clarity in terms of their financial plan based on where they're at, where they want to go.
So Victor, tell me why financial planning? So like you're a corrections officer, And then you said you started taking like your Series 6 and all those licenses.
Yeah.
Like, what made you do that jump? Like, was it a mentor? Was it someone you spoke to? Like, how did that all break down?
Well, I grew up very, very poor, right? So I grew up in government housing. My parents were on welfare. Before we had EBT cards, I remember my mom used to get the food stamps, and they were color coded, purple, green, and bronze for the dollar bill. And I just made a promise to myself at a very young age I was not going to be poor. I made a promise to myself that I was not going to let my children to go through what I went through. And that decision I made to myself, and I just carried it out. I saw it through, and I never looked back.
So I want to dive into something you said earlier too about cutting your teeth and getting your start and the grind and all that. I'm sure Sean told you, but our podcast is around starting a scratch insurance agency. Our listeners are either folks that have started scratch and they're in the process of the first couple of years. Maybe they've started scratch years ago and it's relatable conversations, or they're thinking of doing it. And I think there's a nerve of always like, what is that going to look like when I take the jump to bet on myself, right? Sean's done it. I'm doing it. 90% of our listeners have done it or are doing it. And you're talking about, I made a decision at a very young age that this is the way that I want to take my life. I want to go down this path. Talk about like those early days of cutting your teeth in the business and what that was like, the lessons you learned around that and kind of how that journey was for you.
I think it was super helpful and important because in any business that you start, whatever industry that you start, number one, you need mental toughness. Because not everything's gonna go your way. You're gonna eat a lot of dirt. You're gonna get sand kicked in your face, and you gotta know how to navigate that mentally without breaking down, without wanting to quit. Everybody wants to quit. I wanted to quit in the beginning. I was like, I don't know if I want to do this. Maybe I should just get a job somewhere else doing something else. And it's like you have to build up that character. You have to build up that skin, and you have to earn it. And one of the things I love about the way I did it was that nobody can take away from what I've accomplished, and because I did it on my own. I did have some mentorship. I did read a lot of books on mental toughness, and that kind of helped me emotional intelligence, how to really navigate your feelings, how to not turn to too many abusive substances so that you could just still navigate life. And I think the more that you do, the more you win in life. And it starts with the little wins. The first term policy you sell, the first $50 Roth IRA that you help someone to do. Every case, when it gets bigger and bigger, you never go back. It's like the law of the rubber band. John Maxwell says, once you stretch to a new dimension, you can never go back to your old self. So you have to put yourself in enough positions to swing at the ball. Whether or not you hit it, it's okay, because we know some of the best batters in baseball never batted 100. So if you're batting 30%, man, you're off to the races.
Yeah, here's
Yeah.
here's one thing on this topic before we move on is that I think is so underestimated is the ability of what the experiences in the early days teach you, right? And I think one of the favorite quotes I've heard, and I might butcher it, but something along the lines of like, not why is this happening to me, but what is this trying to teach me, right? I personally have a background of what a shame story, right? Too bad, I'm so sorry, all of these things, but it's like no, the lessons that you learn of going through whatever you have in life, of like you talked about with how you were raised and going through there and making the decision for yourself of this is what I want my life to look like for my kids, just like you said. Those are the experiences that allow you to look at that in a different lens. Wouldn't you agree with that?
Yeah, I would say too, just from somebody who grew up, not same situation, but with very little money, like
Sure.
having to go to food pantries and get food and things of that nature, going to churches, feeling super embarrassed. I think it's important to note, like, some people go through those situations and don't use it as motivation. We talked about this with Brett Young, Stephen, 30 episodes ago. Like, some people take their past experiences and don't do the right thing with it, and they turn to abusive substances. They turn to getting in trouble and things of that nature. And then there's some people that use it as motivation, a healthy chip on their shoulder, to get them to push them to be able to handle rejection more. Somebody says no to a plan he offers. Who cares? I'm just freaking thankful to be here. On to the next one, you know?
Right. 100%.
But someone who might have not gone through that situation might not have that same mental toughness, you know? So I think that was just a great topic to touch on.
Yeah, I think just knowing your numbers, knowing your metrics is the key. You know, and I do everything. Like, well, salute to Sean, because I see his journey, and I'm like, dude, you don't post the cold calls no more. I was following that. Like, you would give him, and then I was cold calling because he was cold calling, and it was stretching me out my comfort zone. And then we never know who's watching our journey, and you'd be surprised. Social media is so powerful now. You gotta post, you gotta stay consistent. It doesn't matter what it is. People need that spark, or people see something that you're doing and it gives them an idea for something else. You get a referral. The universe is just amazing in that way. You gotta push out that energy, and you're not gonna close every deal. I don't close every deal, and I don't try to close every deal, but I know my numbers. I know if I do 10 appointments, I'm gonna close 2 to 3. So if I'm not running my numbers, I'm not running enough numbers, I'm only running 2 to 3 appointments a week, I'm lying to myself. So I can't say, hey, you know what, I should have closed everybody. No, it's like, you should have ran more appointments, and you won't fall behind. And as an entrepreneur, we only get paid if we help families move forward. So it's right. Just keep pushing your numbers, keep going out there and talking to a lot of people.
I agree. You got to be able to handle rejection.
Yeah. Don't wish it were easier. Just do better.
That's it. And it's funny you say that. Like, every time I don't close something, I always look at what I did wrong and what could I have done better. And it forces me to go YouTube a topic, a subject, an objection I might have forgot, and it just kind of, you got to keep your sword sharp, and you got to stay around, like-minded individuals. You got to stay around entrepreneurs, so that you kind of feed off each other and share ideas. And I think that's super important. So I'm super grateful to be here, guys.
Steven, you want to go into some of the...
go ahead.
You cut out there for a second. What'd you say?
I said, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So, Victor, what I think would be a good topic to discuss, mainly because our audience are newer, business owners. What do you think are, like, because I know this topic can get very deep, and I don't know if we need to have like a little attorney statement at the bottom right now, like, this is not financial advice.
Yeah.
But what do you think is some just good financial knowledge for someone to know when starting a new business, right?
You got to have savings. You got to have at least 6 to 8 months, even a year worth of your monthly expenses. Because when you're starting out, you will hit dry patches, and that's when most people panic. You can have a month or two and you'll be like, man, I haven't closed business. And then you could go down a negative spiral and loop and say, I don't know if I could do this. You could just panic and set in really, really fast. So if you have sufficient savings as a cushion, that will help you, but also not to get lazy. Have a goal for the month and break that down for the week, for the day, and stay consistent. Treat your business like a job in the beginning, and then once you develop that habit, everything just kind of flows from there.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, Steven, you and I have talked about this subject, and we've spoken to some people within the industry who are, like, I would say, one of the guys we speak to, I won't say his name, he's got a PhD. Everyone probably knows who I'm talking about. He would tell you that, you should have 6 to 12 months of savings for expenses, as like a cushion. So I think, those are savings. I totally get that. But as far as so outside of savings, all right, so we have our little cushion, right? In the insurance space that we're in, we don't get like a pension when we retire or anything, but we have our book of business.
Okay.
So from like a retirement standpoint and saving over the length of time we're in business, I'm sure that's going to be different for everybody. But what are we looking at there? Should we be doing like a SEP IRA or what do those products look like?
Oh, I got you.
Can we two-way this question too? I think the first part is like for the owner. Can you hear me all right?
Yeah, I got you. Good.
Okay. So for the I think the first part of this question too, that if we can dive in for like the owner of the business, what are some vehicles that we should be using and looking into, and then also when we get to the point of our employees, right? Because we have a lot of people that maybe one-man shows or they're looking to bring on their first hire. So I think we should two-way that question as well.
Yeah.
All right, this is a great question. It's a loaded question. I think the first and most important part is know your number. One of the exercises that I do is I tell every client that I sit with, I don't, especially when they're younger in their 20s and 30s, I say, take out your phone, go right to your calculator, and I say, type in the amount of money you want every month coming in as if you were going to retire today. So if you didn't work another day starting tomorrow, how much money would you want hitting your bank account, right? So I let them, whatever they type, 12,000, 15,000 a month. And I tell them to multiply that by 12, right? So they'll get this number. Once they get that number, I say divide it by 0.06. That big number is what we call your financial independence number. So now we have to look at how many years you have left to retire. What's the goal? So if you're 30 today, you want to retire at 65, that's 35 years. Now we have to backwards engineer how we're going to get there. Now, to get there, there's all kinds of investment vehicles. You may have real estate. You may have IRAs. You may have a 401k from an old job. You may have cash value life insurance. We're going to combine all those assets in a bucket, and we're going to use a compound calculator to project what those assets will be worth to kind of how much of a gap are we going to have. So let's just say you have, based on your current assets, your current gap is only 2 million from the $5 million goal or the $3 million goal, whatever it is. The second question we need to ask ourselves is, how do we want our money taxed, right? Does anybody here think that taxes are going to go down? Right? So we need to be clear about how the IRS looks at your money. So the IRS looks at your money one of three ways: tax now, tax later, tax never. The tax now bucket are your CDs, bank accounts, brokerage accounts. You get a 1099 on those accounts every year if you earn interest, and it's taxed year over year. So your money is the least tax efficient bucket. Then you have things like SEP IRA, IRAs,
and salaries in your tax now bucket.
salaries in your tax now bucket, right? And so those are the deferred buckets. Those are the tax later buckets, right? So the IRS says, hey, I don't want to tax you on the small. I want to tax you when you start taking income later on. The last bucket is the bucket that most people don't take advantage of, which is the tax-free bucket. Anything that starts with a Roth, whether it's IRA or 401k, allows you to put money in that bucket, and you never have to pay the IRS later on because you paid them up front, right? So you pay tax on the seed, not the harvest. Cash value life insurance is also a great tool to use if it's structured properly. It has to be structured properly because you don't want to be paying for just pure course of insurance, and that will allow you to defer, and you can access your money before 59 and a half. So every situation is different. The key is know what your number is, and then figure out what vehicles make the most sense for you. And we backwards engineer a plan where you get to take advantage of everything. So I never say this is better than that or do this versus that. I say, okay, for this year, maybe we may need to max out a SEP IRA, right? Kind of like what Sean is doing.
Yeah.
It allows you to defer and not pay as much taxes for this current year. Maybe if we have enough room, maybe we could do something in the Roth. But if you make over a certain amount, you can't even contribute to a Roth. And that's where the cash value life insurance plans come into play, because you get protection for your family, you get long-term care, and your cash grows without having to worry about market volatility. So you participate in the up of the market without any of the down. So
Yeah, and I think too, just having a bunch of these conversations with with Victor about it, he'll correct me if I'm wrong. I think a lot of the issues that I've seen with people too, just talking with friends and family, is they ask that question kind of the wrong way. It's more of like, oh, what do I invest in? Like that actually is like not the right question.
should I buy Apple, right?
Yeah, because as you can hear what Victor's saying, everybody situation is different. Are you 20? Are you 30? How far are you from retirement? What's your number? No one's going to have the same answer to that. That's kind of what I've learned from talking to Victor. And full disclosure, Victor's helped me with my finances. And it's just, I feel like regardless you use Victor or talk to somebody else, like the person you're speaking to, just make sure they have your interest at heart. I would personally try to find somebody that and you trust, and that they have a plan as far as, look, they give you a plan like Victor's talking about, but they also kind of tell you, like, they kind of make you feel more comfortable, right? So like when I went to Victor initially, I had a million questions. I was kind of like all over the place, freaking out. And he's like, settle down. Like, this is what we could do. Here's the plan. We could do step 1, 2, 3. Once you're in a better spot, then we can go 4, 5, 6. And it's like, you got to speak to that person that's going to make you feel comfortable, and I feel like the same thing can go for insurance sales, right? Like that could be a big benefit for an agent. Like, make the other party feel comfortable, and it'll get you far away. But
well, I think one thing is the first thing you said was, what's that end goal?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing.
For everybody that's listening about your scratch agency and doing your business plan and what you want your agency to look like and what your goal is for revenue next year and the next 10, 20, 30 years, you're looking at that. And then what did Victor say next? Let's back into that.
Yeah.
It's the same concept.
Yeah. And then one of the things that I always encourage people to do, I always say, Google what you think you want. Google some ideas you may have. We have I used to teach financial literacy courses, Finance 101, the rules of money, the rule of 72, compound interest, how taxes affect your investments. A lot of times I'll give potential clients homework. So they'll come to me and they'll say, what can you do for me? I was like, well, where's your knowledge base? What do you understand how these things work? Do you want to learn about it? Do you want to know how they work and why we're doing something? Or do you want me to just tell you what to do? There's two kinds of people. Some people say, just tell me what to do. I just need a coach. Some people want to learn and understand why. And for that person, I say, well, here's my free ebook. I'll email it to you free of charge. There's no charge to it. Read this chapter because this is the chapter that pertains to you right now. You can read every other chapter later, but let's circle back. And anytime you build a financial plan, you want to start with your foundation. And your foundation to any good plan is always going to start with insurance.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think too, what Victor just hit the nail on the head. Like, I think I kind of was looking at it the wrong way when we first started talking, in the sense of like, I'm just too busy, bro. Just take this all over, But his approach is, listen, at the end of the day, it's your finances. Like, you should have some sort of idea what's going on, and understanding what they're investing in, what they're looking at potentially for long-term returns and things of that nature. So I totally agree with that, but I want to let you know, trust me, in the beginning when we started speaking, I knew I was probably going about it the wrong way. So I appreciate you walking me on that ledge.
That's all right. That's why we do annual reviews. You got to always course correct. You're never going to be 100% on track.
What you got, T5?
So let's talk from a business owner standpoint, which we just looked at, but now I'm hiring somebody. What type of things do you suggest for business owners as employee benefits, especially I'm saying employee benefits from a retirement contribution or whatever it might be. And if you can maybe walk through different options that you tell business owners they have around this, because again, we may have somebody listening to this that is just a one-man show and they're looking to bring somebody on. And maybe they can't spend a ton of money in that realm of an employee benefit for a retirement contribution, or some of the options and things to consider for people that are looking to either add additional benefits to current employees, or when they bring that first person on, what that might look like.
No, definitely. There's a bunch of different strategies. I think the simplest one, if you go to my website, it's my first and last name, VictorZayas.com. I've partnered with a huge company that offers very competitive startup 401k plans for as little as $25 a month. So from a business owner perspective, it's like, I want to retain my talent. I want to give something special. I want to make sure, I want to lock them in, especially if you have someone who's really good on the phones. Starting a small 401k with a small match of as little as 1 or 2%, and it's not costing you a lot. And the tax deductions that you get as a business owner for implementing those plans is huge. You can also define how you want to vest. So in terms of employee retention, you could say, hey, if you quit within the first 5 years, that money stays within the plan. You don't walk away with it. There's a whole bunch of different strategies, but just, if you go to the website, there's the fee schedule that talks about if you're a small 1 to 5, if you're 15 to 20 and 30 plus, what the costs are involved. And if anybody has any question with regards to that, I'll be more than happy to do a plan proposal, so they can kind of measure out when the business is scaling enough and whether or not that fits within the budget. Super simple to do, super easy to do, and very cost efficient.
What do you usually see new business owners doing from that standpoint of retirement contribution for employees?
Nothing.
It ranges, honestly. Like I just got I have a guy who has a aeronautics contract. He's doing 50,000 a month. He's got about 6, 7 employees, and the contracts are gonna last for at least 3 years. He wants to start something. He's a little nervous because he's not sure how the business is gonna go. And we started a small plan. His overall cost is $25 a month. And we can always scale from that. I think the hardest part with any business owner is just to start something, right? Don't think about it in terms of like, what if it doesn't work? What if it's going to cost so much later? Just start it. If you need to freeze it for whatever reason, you can. It's flexible. But the hardest part is starting. And once you commit, you make that commitment to yourself and your team. You'd be surprised. You'll step up the game to kind of keep that going.
Does the person on your team, do they have to be on a W-2 or to do that, or is that a tax?
Yeah, normally you would need some sort of payroll. Yeah.
Okay.
So that's,
so if they're a 1099, you can't really do like
yeah, well, 1099 is not necessarily an employee. That's more of like a
independent
contractor. Yeah.
Yeah. What would for we have listeners across the country. I'm sure that I don't know. Can you help across the country? Are you licensed in certain states?
I'm licensed in almost every state.
So,
and most of my appointments are done on Zoom. So yeah, that works.
Right. So, but for somebody who maybe may know somebody from a networking group in their town, and they want to give this the financial guy in their town a shot or whatever. From the standpoint of the person that's looking to have these conversations with someone like yourself, what are things that they should talk about in that initial meeting? What are maybe red flags, or what are things that they should focus on when they're looking to hire professionals like you?
Well, I love this question. This is a great question. You should always FINRA check or SEC check the broker or the agent you're working with. On my website, victorzayas.com, I have an SEC check. So you can punch in my name, my location, and I'll come up. What that means is that there's a report card in every advisor, and what you're looking for is any disclosures. A disclosure is like, hey, you did something not nice, and by law they report it, and it's like your credit report. So if you're working with someone and you're not sure in terms of their credibility, you want to measure how long they've been in the industry. You want to make sure they don't have no bankruptcies, no IRS liens, no foul play, right? Because sometimes advisors get caught doing things they're not supposed to necessarily be doing. That's what I would do. So that for me would be like the last step. First, do I like you? Do I want to work with you? And then let me check your report card or your rap sheet or your background check to make sure you are who you say you are, and then potentially move forward.
I love that.
That's a good question, Stephen.
Yeah. Well, very good, Victor. Thank you very much for this. I don't know, Sean, do you have anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah. There's one thing. Last thing I wanted to touch on, because Victor's very humble. He's got a little nice sales team on his side. You have like 10 people with you, something like that.
A little bit more, like 30.
Yeah. He's got a bunch of people with him. So I think from a recruiting standpoint, a lot of our audience is. Would you agree, Stephen? A lot of it's hybrid. A lot of people we speak to is remote. I mean, there's a lot of people do in-person stuff too, but it is a younger audience. So I am interested in how you are able to do recruiting in a remote atmosphere. Like, what are just some tips you have around that?
For the right person, I think is one of the best models you could have, because you're not stuck with a physical brick and mortar that you have to go to. Most of our training is done online. We do trainings every Saturday and Monday. And one of the cool things about our platform is that we actually partner with PNC agents, agencies like this, and we allow them to participate in the profit sharing part of maybe life insurance, maybe an annuity. And those are big big premiums. Those are big checks, and we offer the highest contracts in the industry. And one of the things, the firm that I'm with, that I cleared through, which is Stronghold Wealth Partners, is that we have one of the best contracts statewide, and all of our agents are all over the United States. They're in Arizona, California, South Carolina, Texas. We even have agents in Hawaii. So, recruiting from a virtual standpoint is by far one of the best things that I like, because it's flexible, but also for P&C agents who probably get the questions of, hey, do you guys do life insurance or retirement planning? Rather than refer it out, keep it in-house and say, hey, you know what? I actually have a partner that specializes in that, or I have a partner, or I have a department that specializes in that. And so nothing ever leaves your table. And the more policies you have with a client, the stickier and the retention is a lot higher. And so I think that hybrid model, that virtual model, is the future for those that see it.
Victor, you said you have 30 people under you?
Yeah.
Okay, so the next question that I know everybody is thinking of is, how do you keep a good culture with somebody in Hawaii when you're in Long Island?
Well, training is Saturday and Mondays. It is their job as an adult to attend. We are not in the babysitting business. I've done that at other agencies where their model, the culture was nurturing and self-development and babysitting. Here is like, hey, this is a professional model. This is what we're about. If you need that self-help stuff, I'll give you a quick 3 to 5 minutes, but I don't want to hear about your cat that's sick or your turtle that died. You're a grown man just like me. Suck it up, buttercup, and let's go.
Sounds like you set expectations.
Yeah. I'm straightforward. If you need something in terms of help on the sales side, if you need support, I will pick up my phone at 2:00 in the morning. The one thing I will not do is baby grown men.
Yeah. I think it's all under the umbrella of communication when it comes to culture, having a team, whatever it is. And the setting expectation file that is under that umbrella is so crucial. Because we had Cole was on a few episodes ago, Sean, who is a farmer's agent. And when he brings on a sales team, I think it was like within the first day, you got to bring like 150 contacts to quote within your first week. If you don't hit that benchmark, you're done. And like versus Victor seems like a nice guy. He only got 75, but look at him. He's a nice guy. Come on, we'll give him another chance. Like this is the expectation, And so I think from a culture standpoint, like you said, you're not babysitting. From a sales standpoint, all these things, putting up front of like, hey, you want to be on this bus. We're going this direction. You want to go with us? Here's the expectations ahead of time, just so you know. And from on the back end, it's better to get all those things out in the wash beforehand, So I think it's a common theme with the conversations that we're having here, Sean.
100%. Set the expectation.
That's awesome.
Well, very good. Victor, for anybody that wants to reach out to you, I know you plugged the website there, but just maybe you said something that someone wants to pick your brain on, whatever. What's the best way to get in touch with you?
They can hit me up on Instagram as well. At Champion Factory on Instagram. VictorZayas.com has all my information. It has my cell phone, my address. So my cell phone is public information if they want to call me or shoot me a text. I don't hide from anything, and I love what I do. I love answering questions. I love being of service. And I really like pointing people in the right direction, because a lot of times people are scared to call or reach out because they say, I don't want to waste no one's time, or I don't want to get charged anything, or what is this going to cost me? So, I'm an open book, and if anybody wants to, ask me a question or just shoot me a DM on Instagram or my website, feel free to just let it rip.
If I follow you on Instagram, are you walking around town with all this weight on your back too, or is that just Sean? Because I'm afraid if I follow two people like that, I'm going to start doing it. I don't think I want to do that.
No, I don't do that yet. But I do post if I go to the gym in the morning, or and I just started getting more active on social media. So
listen,
he's doing CrossFit like you, T5.
There you go. There.
Nice.
His results are looking a little bit better than me over here, but that's okay. That's a different episode. Everybody, that's another episode of the Scratch Agency Podcast. Thanks for joining us. Do us a favor, like the show, share the show, and subscribe. Most importantly, remember to dig down deep, believe in yourself, in your own future. We'll see you next week. Take care.